make sure my camera is still going.
Yeah, everybody complained last week. You know, I have noticed the complaining has like upswing. It's like because
I noticed that of myself. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like we have glitches here. We this whole setup is a hodgepodge of this, and that. You know, we have sound problems, part from Skype, part from things just glitching. And occasionally, you know, because we're doing this all through Skype or remote, or sometimes we're using Yahoo or some other things, cameras freeze, other things just happen. One person said, I'm clearly not spending enough on this setup because of this TV that's back here. I want to make one thing abundantly clear to everybody. I said this in the comment. This TV right here cost $0.00. Somebody we knew moved, and they traded Tiny for this. They took something Tiny wasn't using and didn't want and gave him this. So I would never buy one of these things, but hey, whatever. Okay. In case anybody else didn't read the comments, we now know what RTP stands for. So I'm glad I know that now, but now it's going to bug me why there's no S in it. Is there some rule that says you can't have 4 digits in a file extension or something?
Wait, RTP?
RPP. Red Hat Software Program.
I don't think anything that keeps you from doing it. It's an old standard from DOS. I can't even remember how far back days it was. It had to be a 5.3 file, and it just sort of stuck.
Yeah, it makes you wonder why they didn't call it RSP or something, because it's, oh well. But no, they went with RPP, so the software is silent. I'm kind of with you on the Droid X, to be quite honest.
The Droid X2.
Yeah, it's like the Nexus S. One thing I didn't see, because the things didn't say, is that does at least have a removable SD card, right, on the Droid X2? Or is it another phone that's going to that internal storage model?
I think the Droid X2 still has internal storage, has a removable card, but the Droid X does as well.
Yeah, no, well, so that was one of the things that was wrong with the Nexus S. The 3 things wrong with the Nexus S was it was at best an incremental improvement over the Nexus 1. And it didn't have...
From what I've read about the Droid X2, it feels about as incremental as it comes. It's got a faster processor, maybe a little bit more in terms of RAM, but other than that, it doesn't have the front-facing camera, it doesn't have 1080p video recording. The screen's supposed to be this much better, but according to Droid Life, the colors are skewed, so...
Yeah, and
I'm glad that I'm not eligible to upgrade, we'll put it that way.
Well, and if you're looking at everything that's coming out, both from a lot of the Android phones, and Apple too, and everybody, it's almost like the entire industry has just taken a cycle off in terms of upgrading everything. Like they're waiting for this next generation thing or something, and they just don't want to...
I think they're waiting for 4G to become more prevalent, but 4G won't become more prevalent until people start demanding it, and people won't be demanding it until there are devices that demand it, so it's a catch-22.
It's
actually... 3G took a long time to catch on. Sorry, I jumped in there, but 3G took a really long time to catch on because there weren't a lot of 3G devices, there wasn't a lot of 3G coverage, and now it's pretty well everywhere. It's not everywhere, but it's on Verizon, it's almost everywhere.
Well, no, and the other thing I think that's really screwing up 4G adoption, aside from, the catch-22 you're talking about, is almost nobody who has 4G is offering 4G you can use. It's all capped, it's all metered, yes, give us more money for a faster pipe that you can't use. And nobody wants to buy that. I would rather have a 3G connection unmetered than a faster connection that's going to cost me $1,000 if I'm actually using it.
Of course, how many 3G connections have we had in the past that were truly unlimited? I think 1 or 2 providers ever offered that here, at least in the US.
Yeah.
I know Sprint still technically offers it. Verizon says they do, but yeah.
Well, and that's actually something I'm waiting on, because there's a quote-unquote rumor that things like the Zoom, and a lot of these phones that are coming out on Verizon first are going to be coming out on Sprint in the next 12 months. I'm like, I would wait. Even though I don't really like Sprint, I had the experience from hell with Sprint a long time ago. You know, if they're offering me unmetered data with the device I actually want in a plan that is under $100 that I can actually use on the go, I might be willing to forgive Sprint.
Yeah.
And I think Sprint's counting on that, assuming they ever get the devices, though. You know, that's the real problem with CDMA technology. It's like, I can't take it over to them. They have to edit it and add it to their database. It's like, I don't know if you want to cover this one, because you actually already covered this one in your channel. I on the honeycomb one.
I don't have any real experience with it, but we can definitely talk about it a little bit and see if anybody in the comments knows anything more about it.
Well, like you were saying in your channel, like, the way you conveyed it in your channel was like you're saying it could be misconstrued, and I don't think you meant it this way, but it could be misconstrued to go, honeycomb isn't really different. It's just gingerbread plus some stuff, and that I don't think that's the case. I think they.
It kinda is.
Okay.
They're not going to start from scratch for a new version.
No, that's the thing. I think when they sat down to make honeycomb, they did start with gingerbread. I mean, it doesn't make sense to go back, like you say, to scratch. And that's probably why this was in here, because the fallback, help me, mommy.
In case the people watching are not aware what we're talking about, honeycomb, apparently if you raise the pixel density of your screen above a certain amount and reboot the device, you're greeted with the gingerbread interface instead of the honeycomb 3D holographic thingy. So, sorry, back to what you were saying.
And for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, how dare you not watch Jordan's channel? No, but it's. I think like, because what you're saying, when you change the stock pixel res and other stuff, that's what triggers this. It's obviously falling back to its defaults, which are clearly gingerbread. This I think honestly is part of the reason that Google's creating ice cream, to be quite honest, because I think they didn't think this would be a problem, but as they sat down creating the tablet OS, they realized. They probably knew this before we did, that if we tweak things and redo this, it cries back to mommy, and it does. Like, we need a unifier that adjusts for this dynamically, and that doesn't exist in Android. They realized they needed it then, which is probably what spurred the whole ice cream project. They probably realized that while designing honeycomb, if I had to honestly guess, because that would actually make sense. Because before honeycomb. There was no talk of anything like an ice cream. They didn't think they needed it. I think it made them realize they do need that unifier to deal with that stuff.
Well, one way or another, I'm glad that it's on the way. I don't know if we'll ever even see it on the current generation devices, but certainly be nice.
I think we're going to see ice cream on all the current gen devices, especially since they made that 18-month pledge. And supposedly ice cream's coming out fourth quarter of this year, which is well within the 18-month window. So my honest guess would be the Nexus 1 will get it, and then anything Droid on should get it. Things like the G1, I don't expect to ever get it. I don't expect any of these cheapy knockoff tablets to get it. It's going to be hit or miss with some of the lower-end 7-inch devices. I expect the Galaxy to get it, but some of the lower-end ones I don't think will, because they just won't meet the hardware specs for it.
Well, they keep releasing newer versions of the Galaxy, so I would definitely expect it to see it.
Yeah, well, it's... I'm trying to remember what the specs are for the original Galaxy. Is it at least the gigahertz with 512?
I think it's right at a gigahertz, but I read something about the Wi-Fi version was a dumbed down version at like 800 megahertz, so
yeah,
entirely possible.
I would see that getting cut off, because my honest guess is anything that's too far below the specs of the Nexus 1, regardless of form factor, probably isn't going to get it. My guess is that's around the point they're going to draw the line for that, because they have to include the Nexus 1 for PR purposes. and that's a gigahertz 512. So if your device is below those specs, but like if it's a 256 thing of memory, RAM, if it's much less than 900 megahertz, I think you're kissing those points where you're too low. If you're 512 or a gig or more, I think you should expect it to get ice cream, because there's no reason it shouldn't.
And depending on how quickly they make it open source, a lot of those, like you said, the tablets that probably won't get it officially will probably get it unofficially. I know the G tablet that I've got, they have honeycomb ports on the way if they're not already out there.
Well, and that's actually right on tune with what the main topic was for this week, which is, because in order to do that, you'd have to root the device. If it's not the official stream through, right, you have to root the device. And this is something I'm kind of concerned about. More and more as of late, Google has become... anti-root is the wrong word to say, but they're really teetering on it. They're becoming no. It's like, it's Linux, but it's not open source. You can't root it. You can't. I'm like,
I would have to say that I think in a lot of ways they're appealing to content providers. They're trying to get as much viability for the platform as they can, so they're bringing music and movies and whatever else, and rooting adds a layer of complication to it that could be considered a security issue, a possible loss of revenue for some of these companies.
Well, and that goes back to like what we were saying last time. Part of me wants to say, I hope I'm wearing my tinfoil hat, but the other part of me, more and more, there's this undertone in the industry that open source and consumers being allowed to actually use their devices is like, and we're fighting against it, like you're saying, under the guise of, we're just preventing piracy. It's like, let us take away your rights as a user. It's not your device, it's our device, and we're just lending it to you under the guise of protecting you from evil piracy. And that's a scary, very scary precedent to be setting, and that the consumer what's scarier is that the consumer may largely put up with it because they don't realize quite what they're giving away, and that just sets a bad precedent. I mean, once we set that as a rule of thumb for the industry, it's then a hair's breadth away between some idiot legislator in Washington going down and saying, well, you know what, it's already industry policy, so let's make it a law that, have another bad law like the DMCA, which basically says, oh, by the way, are you fixing your own computer? Well, you're now a felon. I don't want that, but I'm with you. I want to give Google the benefit of the doubt and say it's the content holders they're having to deal with. On the other hand, I have a hard time giving them the benefit of the doubt because Google, more than anyone, is a company that has an appreciation for how slippery a slope this is, and if if you give this concession, you've just set everything back 10 years and you're never going to get it back. I don't know what your 2 cents on that little slippy slope argument is.
Usually the same as every other slippery slope argument. You can't really apply it. The slippery slope is rarely as slippery as they make it seem.
Well, okay, but... Okay, taking out this from the 180 the other way, do you think there's grounds for a class action saying, how dare you cut us off for doing something that's not against the terms of service? Because it isn't. Rooting your device is not against the Android terms of service. It may be against your carrier's terms of service, but that's a different matter altogether.
But are the services that are being cut off under the same terms of service?
As far as I know, they're under the same terms of service as the whole marketplace.
What we're talking about is like Google Movies and Google Music, right?
Right.
And those should have their own EULAs. I know the one Android help page does specifically mention rooting is not supported, and it's not necessarily that. Well, it would have to be that they're blocking specifically based on it. Goes out again.
No, and that's the thing here. Honestly, at the end of the day, I don't think this is going to prevent one person from stealing a Google rented movie. I don't.
No, it's another stepping stone.
Yeah, it's all this is doing is hurting honest users who are making the most of their device.
Mm-hmm.
And that's this more than anything. This is a concern that's cropping up in open source and anything Linux based. We have companies that are trying to do to Linux. I hate to put it this way. This is a bad way to put it, but in some ways, it's companies doing to Linux what Apple did to BSD. And initially that's not necessarily a bad thing, but if you go too far off, you wind up with an Apple-like company and other problems, and it's. I would be hesitant to want anything to do with this section of the Android marketplace, and my concern is they might expand this philosophy to other things, basically saying, if you've rooted, you now can't access the Android marketplace, and that's scary. That would fracture Android in a second if they even tried that, because everybody would just move over to the Amazon marketplace, say, screw you, Google, and Google would get no revenue.
Which is why they probably won't do that for the default apps. But I can see them doing it for the books, the movies, and the music, which they already have for the movies.
Yeah, they already have for the movies, but see, honestly, this book, movies, and music is going to have a hard enough time competing as it is. Can they really afford to be pissing off from my point of view, would be a large core user base? Rooting your Android device is not like jailbreaking your iPhone. That's a large chunk of the Android community. That's like saying, hi, core user, fuck off. We don't want you anymore. I don't think Google really weighted what they were doing here too well. Or do you think I'm giving the average consumer more credit like I always do? Do you think it's as much a niche market in Android as it is in iOS?
I would say that rooted users on Android, there are probably a lot more of them. I don't know, that's a difficult one there. I know the communities based around it seem to be larger, but I didn't spend a whole lot of time in the jailbroken community on iOS when I had it. But in terms of it'd be nice if there was some way to tabulate it, but if you could tabulate it, it'd be really easy for the providers to say, oh, these are the people, let's just go ahead and cut them off.
Exactly.
Which I'm sure they can already, we talked about that before, how they can already see if you're rooted or not.
Well, that's the thing. It's setting one more precedent for basically, I'm convinced more and more that ultimately that's what's going to happen. There's going to be like this line drawn in the sand, and they're going to say, hey, you 50% of the Android community, fuck off. We don't need you because you're rooting. And I'm just like, why? Why? What's wrong with that?
I don't see I don't see Google ever doing that in terms of the Android marketplace or in terms of just general updates, but I can see the providers doing it. And I can see the content creators doing it. But
and at the end
there's almost always going to be a way around it. Netflix is only released on about 7 devices now. They just, I think, announced 3 more this week. But I've had Netflix running on my phone for a week now, and it's been running just fine, even though it's considered unsupported. It's just the community has found a way around it.
Well, and
it's not like I'm pirating Netflix or anything. I've got a paid Netflix subscription.
Well, and see, that's one of the reasons I'm glad AT&T at least is no longer blocking unsupported apps like that, because like you're saying, it's a supported app, it's fine, it's just not supported for your device, but there's an unofficial version out there for you to download and put on and such, which is not bricking your phone. So I think AT&T realized, oh wait, maybe we should let people do that. Do you think that maturity will ever come for rooting? For those of you who don't know what the difference is between rooting your Android device and unsupported, when you jailbreak an iOS device, you're adding the ability to add any application that Apple in their infinite wisdom, thought you didn't need. That feature is already built into Android unless the carrier or manufacturer removes it, which AT&T...
There's a couple of other things that jailbreaking does, but that's not really what's going into on here. I mean, you can change a little bit the look and feel, and I think you can replace the whole springboard at the bottom. And
yeah,
anyway,
you can.
Back to Android.
No, you're right, but that's the primary reason That's the primary reason you jailbreak an iOS device. You're right. It does give you more. It gives you a lot of things. To get all of that functionality in Android, it's built in unless it's been removed. Hence the rooting thing. One of the primary reasons rooting is necessary for Android is the carrier put crapware on there that you can only get rid of by rooting the device. Or they've put a UI you don't like and you'd like to default back to the stock Android UI. Or your device can support an upgrade that they haven't rolled it out yet and you're sick of waiting on them, so you're going to put it on yourself. Those are the primary reasons for rooting an Android device. Basically cutting out all the middlemen that are making things take forever and just doing it yourself.
Taking advantage of the openness of the platform.
Yeah. And that's why I'm really concerned about this war on root in Android, because we wouldn't need root in Android if we didn't have all these middlemen trying to fuck it up. But because we have all these middlemen trying to turn Android into iOS, or something like iOS, or, basically they want to turn an open environment into a closed environment. And we as the end user want an open environment, and supposedly Google as the developer wants an open environment. It's like you have the source and the endpoint who want the same thing, and root is a way to say, hey, all you people in between us, get the hell out of the way. That's a good thing. And I think that's a must-have for developers. I'm of the mindset that almost everyone who's developing for Android should root their Android device so they can really mess with everything and develop properly. That's going to create a real problem if developers can't get access to the full experience because they're a developer. I mean, that's bad. It's like saying, oh, because you're actually improving the platform, you're not allowed to use it.
Yeah. I've actually never done any development on Android, so I don't know how necessary rooting is to that process. But
well, it depends what type of development you're doing.
So a lot of it can be done in emulators on the desktop.
Right. In which case you wouldn't need that. But if you're, I'm thinking really abstractly here. But if I'm trying to create this full-on thing, being rooted would have its definite advantages because I just kind of go around everything, and then once I know how everything needs to go, then I know how to, just roll this thing out. So you think it's the providers, not Google? Well, then my honest sense is, why is Google not standing up to them? Because once Google gives this concession, how do they get it back? If it's not their desire and it's not what they want, I mean, how do they back off of this? Now that they've given it to them, they're never going to get it back.
I think that's part of what they've been trying to do. I think that's part of why they haven't released the source to Honeycomb yet. Well, not all of it at least, and why they're working so hard to try to unify things so they're not as dependent upon one platform, one manufacturer, one vendor, one ISP, or one wireless provider. So if it does come down to it and company X says, we're not going to support blah, then Google can say, okay, well, we're not going to allow our providers to put their devices on your network anymore. So have fun with that. Okay, thanks, bye. Largest platform on the planet or whatever. If it's not there, it will be eventually.
Well, let's see that.
I don't think that'll happen.
Well, let's see. That's the thing. The only way I see Google being able to get what they're giving away back, if it's not something they want, like you're saying, is by building in a kill switch, which then can be used for good and evil, which is a problem. Which is a problem in and of itself. It's like, talk about going nuclear. I'm gonna go, yeah, screw you, because you're not good for the Google. You know, it's yeah, I don't see.
Of course, if you really think about it, if Google was 100% for the idea of rooting the devices, they would have come with an option to do that without having to find a third-party app to do it. In my opinion of it.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. And this is what I'm a little concerned with on Google. Google comes in and they're like, we're the champion. We love open source. We love open. We love Linux. We love Sun. We love Sun. And in some ways, I think that's pseudo. You know, they're like, we love all of this as long as it's going through us. You know,
well, it's going through us and we're making money off of it.
Exactly. You know,
at the end of the day, they are a company. That's their
prerogative. Well, no, that is their prerogative. But, you know, in a lot of ways, this is there's like an odor here of, okay, how much longer is Android really going to stay open? You know, is Android going to start to become closed? We're going to have this war in Android where you have, whether it's through Google or through Google's apathy of the end user versus the platform trying to get what it's capable of out of it. I mean, that's not a war we won in Android. You know, that's one of the reasons Android grew so fast, because it didn't have that problem. Everybody was sick of dealing with that problem. They bailed. They went over to Android. You know, it wouldn't surprise me if a lot of those people bailed on Android if that began to become a real problem. I mean, this thing that's under attack here is part of why Android is growing by like a squared factor, like it is. You know, it's growing. That won't keep doing that if it can't do that. It will plateau off. Do you think they'd all jump ship to the next thing? Do you think another platform would be created? I mean, is it?
There is entirely the possibility of another platform. I mean, Migo, I think we talked about it last week. Migo is still an upcoming possibility, even though Nokia has abandoned it. But as long as Google doesn't do something horrifically stupid, in terms of user experience, it's still going to have a lot on iOS in terms of you can still root it, and if you can't root it, as long as they do work together to put out newer versions that do have changes that users have requested within a reasonable time frame, they're still going to be a long way ahead of a lot of the other options that are out there.
Well, my concern is they're gonna. I mean, it's like we have the new music service doesn't work with Linux. If you're rooted, you can't use their streaming thing. All of this stuff is coming back to media and so on. So I'll agree with you. It's probably the content providers that are going, we'll sue you out of existence if you dare let people do what modern technology lets them do. It's like we'll be fighting that for the next 50 years. When all those people die, their children will have taken up the banner. Yes, we want to do things like 1940. We want the 1940s to come back. It's like, but moving on that, it is one of those things that's more and more coming to a head. And I don't know. What wouldn't honestly surprise me is with Alien Dalvik, if that got ported over to other things. Although this does raise a concern, though. Alien Dalvik is the way to use Android apps, not Sun. Here's a question. Would there be a way to tie a device using Alien Dalvik into the Google Marketplace? I don't think you can.
I don't think you can currently. That's something they could probably work out in the future, but I would be willing to bet there's not a way to do it yet.
Well, and
you have to have the licensing through Google or an unofficial app to do it.
And if they keep playing this, you can't access the marketplace under the... Maybe that's what this really is seeds of, actually. Maybe they're a little afraid of something like Alien Dalvik going to their thing through them unnecessary.
But at the end of the day, Google, as far as I understand it, is not really making any money off Android. They're making their money off of the marketplace, so it really doesn't matter who's accessing it.
Well, that's the other thing. That's why this surprised the hell out of me.
That's the thing that confuses me, is why is the marketplace not more prevalent? Why is it not showing up on these $50 Chinese Android tablets, or the generic knockoff phones you can find anywhere, or why is it not showing up on other platforms? Why is it not on iOS and, well, iOS, never mind about that, BlackBerry and whatever else? Because it does support the apps already, why not support the marketplace and make more money off of more users?
Well,
then there wouldn't be a reason to use Android, I guess.
Well, no, and that's why. Why is this even an issue? Why should it matter if I'm rooted or not, as long as I'm giving Google my $3? You know what? Like they want my $3.
Well, if you're rooted, there's probably a way to work around that and get the app without paying for it. I haven't got any experience as far as that's concerned, but
no, I wouldn't think so, because at the end of the,
if you can get it one way or another, you can get it one way or another, whether you're rooted or not.
Well, here's the thing: if you're I don't see how rooting your Android device would let you steal an app from the Google Marketplace. It might let you steal an app from your friend, like you download it off your friend's phone and then give it to your other friend. It would let you do that. But if you're not going to be able to get it out of the Google Marketplace, because the Google Marketplace goes through Google Checkout. If your credit card doesn't clear, they're not going to release the download. Because you're not rooting Google's server, you're rooting your device. Google's service still isn't going to have a token in there that says, yes, you paid, initiate download. It wouldn't work. Unless I'm completely missing how that marketplace works, because as far as I know, even though it's cloud synced, it still lives on Google's server. You know, that's...
It really shouldn't make a difference. I mean, and that's probably why the Android marketplace itself will not have any issues as far as allowing people with rooted devices to access it. I think what I was getting at earlier is I don't think they're going to block rooted devices from the market. But in terms of movies and music, yeah, the rooting part of it allows you to do screen capturing, allows you to port it out to over HDMI a whole lot easier, and things of that nature that they don't necessarily want you doing on your tiny little device that you're not paying them enough for, I would guess.
I guess, but you know,
that's actually another thing I thought I'd mention there is I really don't see the Google movies going terribly far. I've just got to say it, because all of these pay a set price for a certain amount of time for one movie. It don't work, especially when Netflix is one set price per month, and I'm not being paid to advertise that, just in case you're concerned.
Well, no, and I agree with you. The Google movies, books, all of that stuff, and the music too, was going to have a hard enough time getting any traction. I mean, it's competing against Amazon and iTunes, and you can already get all the Amazon stuff, Kindle, yada yada, so Kindle, music, shot, on your Android device. There's no reason to go through Google except for the Android syncing stuff. And like you say, you get Netflix, and it's just the whole Netflix archive on your thing, on your side.
The instant streaming archive.
Yeah, literally the only thing the movies had going for it was the ability to pin it locally if you're fixing to lose internet connection. And I would do that in a heartbeat if I was traveling with kids and we're fixing to get on an airplane, and I'm like, $3, they can play with my device, watch a movie, I don't have to pay $50 for the plane's Wi-Fi, and I'm going to be out of range of the mobile towers.
But at the same time, if you're traveling with kids and you don't already have a DVD, a USB drive with movies on it, or a laptop with movies on it, etc., ad nauseum, you're probably doing something wrong.
Well, no, that's the other thing. You would probably have at least 4 or 5, you know, whatever the movie, what is it, Shrek, SpongeBob, whatever.
Yeah. Something local stored.
Yeah, stored for his son. So again, yeah, it wasn't gonna, but poor planning.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that always does happen.
Poor planning always happens, and you know what? I would argue more parents spend $20 for poor planning than any other sect of the market. You know, oh crap! I didn't really think this out. You know what? It's worth it.
Right, and I can see getting stuck in a bad situation, but and actually, I think at the moment, I don't have any videos on my phone. So if I were in a bad situation, I would be up a creek. But
yeah, but short of that, I didn't see a use for it because it's just that if you want books right now, you go through Amazon. No, Apple can push all they want. I'm sorry, Amazon has that market. Amazon has that market cornered. I would argue for music, it's a debate between Amazon and iTunes right now. iTunes is definitely the forerunner, but Amazon's gaining a lot of traction, so we'll see where that... Amazon's main advantage is it truly is platform agnostic, and that it's accessible.
DRM free.
Yeah, it's DRM free and it's platform agnostic.
Yeah.
iTunes is now DRM free, but it's not fully... You can get most of the music on iTunes without digital rights management now. So that's a good... Yeah, they realized they needed to compete with Amazon, but they're still not platform agnostic. So, in the end of the day, I see that largely being a tie between them because they're very large, established marketplaces. I think they'll both stay around, but Amazon's definitely gonna be able to pursue most people's needs. But with this being so overcrowded like this right now, it's Google cannot afford to be turning away customers, and that is what they're doing here. They're saying, "Oh, your money's no good here," and at the end of the day, if you're doing that for any reason, you've killed something that was already all but dead. So it wouldn't. So I think the one thing we can agree on, whether we think this is the start of a nefarious Google or not, is that Google Movies, Google Books, and Google Music are dead. They're dead, Jim. There's no reason to use them.
Yeah, I can't see myself using the movies. The music thing, I'm still trying to figure that one out. I got an email from them today saying, "Hey, by the way, welcome to the Google Music beta. Have free music." I was like, okay. So I've been messing with it today, and I'm confused by it. We'll put it that way.
Well, you can't. Well, the thing is, you can't sync to it from
upload it to
from Linux.
Yeah.
Why did they send you that?
I don't know. I think I signed up for it at one point before I realized it wasn't going to work on Linux, and I got the invite when I was at work, so I clicked on it, and yeah, I can listen to all the stuff online through Linux, I think.
You can listen to it through the cloud thing. You just can't put it. To put things into it, you need an application. And I was surprised as hell by that because I'm like, if any company would get the point of making a cloud-based application that all it needs is a browser,
yeah.
You would have.
How difficult is it to hit upload on something and upload a file?
Yeah, you would have thought Google would have gotten that, but no. Oh, we need this local app. I'm like, what? What? What?
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on to the last thing. Because this came up, Skype is. For those of you who have had Skype broken, this is.
We're on Skype. Hi.
Yeah. Yeah. What it has to do with, there's a config XML file in Skype that's apparently getting screwed up. It's in a different place in Linux, Windows, and OS X. There's a ZD article that tells you how to fix it. 4 people over the past few weeks have been complaining about this. Like, we were doing everything from, you must have a bad hard drive, maybe bad memory, maybe Windows is just screwed up, maybe OS X is just screwed up, what the heck's going on with your Linux box? But it's as of this morning, there's a ZD article that explains, no, it's this screwed up file in Skype. And the indicative behavior is Skype will just crash for no reason, like you didn't do anything, suddenly Skype stops. If it's been doing this, eventually what's going to happen is one day you're going to come up, and every time you try and launch Skype, the little login box will come up, and then Skype will crash. It'll eventually get to that point. You find the file, you rename it, and you move on. I want to say this has something to do with MS1. That's the general sentiment going around since this morning, now that they found where it is. But given that some of the people who have been reporting this issue are having the problem on Windows 7, I don't think this is Microsoft doing this. I think it's just a glitch in the Skype system. In my case here, it happened to me. It only happened on my Linux boxes. It didn't happen on Windows or the OS X system. And then I had one person, it was only happening on their OS X system. So it is Skype. But if I didn't know about this problem and hadn't known about it for a few weeks, the fact that it only happened on my Linux box, I would have been sitting here going, "Evil Microsoft, you broke Skype!" But they didn't. Anything else we want to go into, or do we want to just kind of tail off a little early this week since it's just you and me?
It's probably a good time to tail off. I've got a ton of stuff to do before tomorrow.
Yeah, you're telling me about that. I wish you luck with that. Before we tail off, everybody in the comments, actually, those of you who watch all the time, or those of you first time watching, I want to know, do you, on the whole root thing and the thing with that, do you think it's Google? Do you think it's the content holders? Do you think it's a problem that's going to evolve more, or do you think it's just a coalition of bad things coming together and Google is still this huge proponent of open and they really want to be a proponent of this? Because I'd honestly like to know what the community sentiment is on that.
Definitely.
Alright, peace out all.